So one of the biggest things for me in changing my relationship with my anxiety was changing my view from one of avoidance to one of embracing. What is up, guys, and welcome back to Above the Middle, the place where we talk about all things personal development with me, Joe Gibson. So to start off today, I really wanted to go into the history of anxiety. Why do we actually have anxiety? Why are those feelings so strong where we try and do something that we haven't done before? So if you go back thousands of years ago to our caveman days, we had to have anxiety. We had to have such strong reactions in our body to stop us from going outside of our comfort zone. Because if you went beyond your cave, or if you went beyond your land, or you went beyond what you knew was safe for you, there was a real risk back then that harm could be done to you. So our bodies had to develop this system so that whenever we stepped outside of our comfort zone, that we would have such a strong reaction in our bodies that it would stop us from doing it. So that's why anxiety can feel so strong. That's why it does feel very strong. It's because our bodies are literally trying to stop us from doing something. And that served a real purpose back then because there was real danger involved. So I just want to start off by saying that there is a real reason why anxiety can feel so uncomfortable. Like, there was a real evolutionary basis to anxiety. And it just so happens that in the 21st century, we do not have these dangers anymore. We're not faced on a day-to-day basis with real life-threatening threats. But our brains still work in the same way. So anytime your brain feels like you want to step outside of your comfort zone, when you want to step outside of that little circle that you've built around yourself, step outside of the land, go out into the wilderness, you're going to have an anxious reaction. Those uncomfortable feelings are going to come up. And it just so happens that each one of us have our own little sets of comfort zones, which are dependent on the way that we were brought up, which are dependent on our genetics, which are dependent on our teenage years of the trauma that we've been through. We all have our little sets of comfort zones. Even just the thought of a tiny bit of self-expression to me brought out a really big reaction. Because my comfort zone and the way that I've been brought up and the way that I've been living for so long was very small. I wasn't expressive. I didn't try new things. I just kept myself small because that was safe for me. Because there was this fear from obviously when I was younger, my teenage years, that if I did step outside of that comfort zone, that something bad was going to happen. And so my comfort zone was right around me. I couldn't step outside just a tiny bit because that would bring such a big reaction in me, because my brain would sense any sort of movement outside of what I've known as danger. And this goes the same for everybody. Our brains are really good in knowing what has kept us safe and trying to keep us there. If you are doing something, even if it doesn't satisfy you, but it's kept you safe for a few years, your brain's going to think, oh great, we've been doing that, that's kept you safe, let's just keep doing it. We don't want you stepping outside of that comfort zone because then that can mean danger, that can mean something different, and we don't like different, we like staying the same. What often happens with a lot of us, and what happened with me, is that you kind of start to suss out what your brain's doing, and you think, hey, you're trying to keep me small here, but I'm not enjoying this. You know, staying within my little comfort zone isn't actually fulfilling me. I'm just living a very boring life, doing the same thing, not being self-expressive, and I hate it. And you get sick of it. And then you want to step outside of that comfort zone. What can often feel challenging for a lot of us, and was challenging for me, was that I was kind of torn between doing what I've always done and being comfortable and feeling safe there, but ultimately not being satisfied, or stepping outside my comfort zone, doing something different, trying something new, but being faced with those anxious feelings. Because the brain hates uncertainty, but we can work around it. And I'm going to tell you how. So what I do, anytime I am faced with anxiety, anytime I am faced with those uncomfortable feelings that come up, I just remind myself, if I'm feeling anxious right now, then that must mean I'm stepping outside my comfort zone, I'm doing something different, and that right there means growth. That's what it means. That is where you're going to find development. You're not going to develop as a person, you're not going to grow if you're staying small. Like, it's not going to happen. If you just did what your brain told you to do, and if you just did what was comfortable for you, you would stay small. You would not develop, you would not grow as a person. And what you have to realise is that whenever you step outside of your comfort zone, there is going to be anxiety there. Like, it's just a given. You cannot go about it in a different way. You can't bypass the anxiety, because our brains just code the uncertainty of change as something bad, as a risk, as danger. But you just have to face it. So switch round the way that you view your anxiety. Don't see anxiety as a threat. Even though those feelings can be really, really intense and they are, and trust me, I've felt them all, even though those feelings can be so strong, doesn't mean there's actual danger there. Unless you're being chased by a predator, doesn't mean there's actually a real threat there. In fact, what it means is that you have a chance to step outside of what you've known, and you have a chance to grow as a person. And the only way to grow as a person is stepping outside of that comfort zone and doing something you're afraid of. Because what happens when you step outside of your comfort zone and you do something, you're telling yourself then, I don't need to be afraid of this. And in that process, you grow a fuckload. An example, so for me, obviously with making videos and stuff, I was shit scared of making videos. But the only thing that kind of pushed me through it was realising, hey, if I want to grow as a self-expressive, as a confident person, I need to do this, because I'm not going to grow in that area of my life if I do not do that. If I give into that anxiety, if I avoid it, if I don't do it, I'm not going to grow. Like, how in the world am I going to grow in that area of my life if I don't challenge myself? And if anything, just avoiding situations is a regression in your personal development. It solidifies this identity of staying small. You're essentially telling yourself, hey, I can't do this thing. I can only stay within my little bubble. I can't step outside because it's too scary for me. There's too much anxiety there. And you're just reinforcing this identity as somebody who stays small, who doesn't believe that they're worth more. So all of these things which I talk about in terms of changing your behaviour, developing yourself, it's like a habit loop. I've stepped outside my comfort zone so many times now, and I've faced that anxiety so many times that it's just gotten to a point where it's quite easy for me to do. And that's not to say I don't feel anxious. I still feel anxious every time that I want to do a video. But I do it anyway, because I've learned that that anxiety does not mean danger. That anxiety means growth. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. But you know, it's a process. And if I was to sit down and stop doing videos and give in to that anxiety, I would start to regress myself, because I'd be telling myself that I can't do it. So even though that stepping outside of your comfort zone might be really difficult to do at the start, you can get support for that. You can learn ways to deal with that anxiety. I know there's breathwork techniques, meditation, there's loads of things to help make yourself more comfortable when you first start stepping outside of your comfort zone. But you've got to do it. Like, you have to do it. You can't get outside of that little circle without going across the boundaries. You can't go up, you can't go down, you have to go across. And it just so happens that in a space between your comfort zone and who you want to be, this space around it is just a sea of anxiety. It's going to be a sea of uncomfortable feelings. In order for you to get from A to B, in order for you to do what you want to do, which hasn't been your normal, which hasn't been what's safe for you, you're going to feel anxious. Like, it's part of the process. So the main thing that I want you guys to take away from this is just to approach your anxiety in a different way. Change that mindset. When those feelings of anxiety come up, don't immediately think, oh, just because I'm feeling this thing, that means something bad's going to happen. That means I have to avoid the situation because I'm feeling these strong feelings. Start to think, oh, I'm feeling anxious right now, so that must mean I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. Because I'm feeling anxious, that must mean this is an area where I can grow. Because you have to remember, anytime you're stepping outside your comfort zone, that means growth. And it's just changing that mindset and challenging that mindset. The satisfaction that comes out of facing your fears and overcoming them overpowers any sense of uncomfortable that you feel while you're going through it. Because there's nothing better than reaching the other side, to crossing that bridge and realising, I did that thing that I was anxious about, and now you feel like the world is like in your hands because you can do anything. You should never let anybody stop you from doing something, but you should never let yourself stop you from doing something. And that is probably the biggest revelation and most empowering thing that I've learned the past year, and part of that has been embracing anxiety. Hopefully you've managed to get the message. Again, really big thing for me, really big thing, and something which I continue to build on, something that I continue to remind myself of, something I continue to just grow from. I don't give in to that anxiety. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video and taken something from it. Check out my blog where I've written a post about this as well. So if you want to get a bit of a different perspective, check that out. Subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next Wednesday for another video. See you then.